Finally live, and today I want to show off this. This is the AT Games Atari Flashback 9 classic game console, or just Atari Flashback 9, or just the Flashback 9 for the Atari consoles. Actually, the original one came out in the 1990s after the failure of the Atari Jaguar. This is the 9th generation. This one was created by AT Games. Has all the Atari logos. It's a little bit different. This one's the HDMI console. So it has an HDMI port. You can't get the HDMI cable. You have to buy one for it. You got the little 5-volt power cord, which is very similar to the Legends Flashback. It's very simple. It's the same 5-volt charger. You have two controllers, which is similar to the Legends, but one of them is the Player 1 controller. This is the Player 1 controller. You have all your options built into it, even though the options are also built on the console. You got your simple button. The power, you got your two ports in the front of the console. Your left and right. They have an inlay here that's supposed to look like fake wood, but it looks more like someone just took a knife over something that was painted brown and then slashed it. This console is very light. It's very similar to the other console I have, the Legends Flashback. You can plug the Atari. This controller from this console can be plugged in. The ports are different though. They have the ports positioned on the front, so you have to plug it in like so. But plugging in this controller on the console really doesn't do much. Even though real-life Ataris could play and use the Sega Genesis controller, and Atari controllers could be plugged into a Sega Genesis. You normally would just take this controller, plug it into the front of the console, and that, everything else. It also has an SD card slot now. Most of the Atari Flashback 7 through 8 did not have this function, and a lot of them, there are some models that are cheaper than this one that only use analog TV style hookup instead of an HDMI. There's essentially 9 versions of this console now. This is the $110 game version. There is a version called the Atari Flashback 9 Gold, and it's very similar to this, but it has wireless controllers. So basically it's this controller but with batteries. Don't have the wire on it. It's cut off like this. It has all these buttons on it. There is support for paddle games, so you can play Pong if you're interested in playing the older Pong games. The games are a mixture of homebrew. I'll go get the box and show you what it looks like. But you get all 110 games, and they bring back Frogger for this console. Normally I don't keep the boxes for these consoles, but here's the AT Games logo and all that. Here's the front of the box, showing the console off. You got more games on the bottom of the box and in the front, but then you flip it over and you get 110 games. This plays the games in 720 output. You got the resume, the same state, and all that stuff, but as far as these consoles go, they're pretty rudimentary. Let me get the Legends Flashback. You guys have already seen me review this, but now here's the Legends Flashback. For comparison size, the Legends Flashback is smaller. It's basically their version of a Sega Genesis console without the Sega Genesis port on it, or cart slot. This doesn't have a cartridge slot, which is kind of sad. It would have been nice to be able to buy other Atari games besides the preloaded games and plug it into here. Obviously, AT Games hasn't done that. It looks like an Atari 2600, but we got our left and right. We got our select button, we got a power, and a start button. And here the buttons are all on. Maybe hard to see them on there, but here's what they look like. This is pretty much the entire console. And yes, you can put Atari controllers into this console. There's just the port is a little different, and you would plug it in like that, upside down, instead of the more great, as they put it, on this console, but the controllers don't feel too cheap. I will later show some gameplay of the console itself. This is the Player 2 controller. It doesn't get anything special, so I call this the third-party controller, because all you do is you got the button and the stick. It's got the rubber on there. It looks like a regular controller. You got your up, down, left, and right, and your little button. But for the most part, I have nothing against these consoles. It's just the price for it is a little bit steep. Retail value, depending on where you get this, you can get this from $30 to $50. You can buy them from Walmart. Some people advise buying the gold version. The issue with the gold version is it has 120 games, but it has wireless controllers. So you have to either go buy wire controllers from AT Games, wired, if you don't want to play with the pain in the butt of using batteries, or you can buy all the Blast consoles, because the AT Games Blast console has all the exact same amount of games. They're just smaller. You have 20 games for all the Atari hits. A small console that you can just plug this cord gets plugged into the TV, and you can plug this little HDMI dongle into the TV as well. Here it is. You guys see me review this. This is a small console. Very small, very easy. And it's got the same start menu, but it's more of a Sega Genesis controller rather than the classic Atari joystick. But I will do a review of the games itself. There's 110 games. I probably won't play them all, but we'll get a basic review. Or I'll end up doing 3 reviews like I did for this console. It'll be called playing the Atari Flashback 9. This is a light console. You can shake this and hear stuff rattling around, which is not good. So hopefully, well, it wasn't damaged when I took it out of the box. You can shake this console, but it sounds a lot more meatier. And it's a little bit easier to use. I only have enough ports on the TV, so some of these consoles have to pretty much share the TV. I need to go get another HDMI cord just to be able to play this in glorious 720p. And the thing is, I'll have to use the HDMI 4 port on the TV, which usually is reserved for this console here because of the power source. The great thing about this one, though, is you can fit this console in your pocket and take it with you, whereas this thing, you gotta pack it up in a protective case just to take it with you. And same nice little 5-volt controller charger, though. And it, like any of the other consoles, you can plug it into the back here. They have a little slot for it, and that basically points up. It's different. The other console has it upside down, and this one points up. I'll have to go get an HDMI cable. So I will be back. I'm just going to leave this thing here. You guys will... well, I was going to leave it there for you guys to look at. This one out. Well, I'll be back. I don't want to take that long to find HDMI cable around here. I'm back. I found the HDMI cord. Now we can use this as an example. This gets plugged into the console itself in the forward port position. Maybe. Maybe not. Let's try. Yeah, I wonder if there's a way. There we go. Okay, found the correct one. Now, setting this up on the TV is going to be a different story. A little bit more of a nightmare. Because, as you can see here, the TV itself is plugged into there. We got the PS4 down here playing YouTube. We got this console here doing its thing. Taking a little chilling. So, we're going to have to plug this in. Sorry it took so long, but in order to do this, one has to find the HDMI cord for all these HDMI consoles. Thankfully, they didn't make the power cords like giant bricks like the original Atari, so we don't have to worry about that. Got a good spot to plug that in. This console's ready. All you're really going to do is just find a spot to plug it in. In this case, it's on the HDMI port side of this TV. HDMI 4 is in. Got Amazon Fire Stick back here too. I don't like the Amazon Fire Stick. Man, this is a fat piece of crap. There we go. That is now attached. Turn the TV back to its thing. Boom. Now, what you have to do is, now that you got all this junk hooked to the TV, you need to get the controllers for it. And obviously you have to have the Layer 1 controller. This is Layer 2. Layer 1 has the menu, start, select, and rewind functions on there. And your similar regular button. It's even got the little Atari logo on there. The console itself isn't bad, but it's light. And my fear is that if you accidentally drop this console, it will shatter into a lot of pieces and probably a lot of curse words because how tiny it is. I'll plug this forward into there. Boom. But anyway, this will conclude the unboxing / review portion of the console itself. A lot of purists of original Atari games were upset by the creation of these consoles, including stuff like this. Mad Little Pixel and a few other people have talked about these consoles. And a lot of other people, but I would give it, I will test it out and let you guys know how I think about it. And you guys can see me in the next video.